Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're doing a first impression review of the Magical Shoes Alaskan Light Edition. So I've had the Magical Shoes Alaskan Original for the past year. I really like them because they're super lightweight, they've got a nice durable tread, and they've got some thick insulation for winter, but when you get into like fall and spring, in later spring, you know, when the temperature is kind of like 40, 50, they can get a little warm. So basically Magical came out with the same boot, but with some lighter weight insulation. There are a few different features as well. So let's just start off with the toe box. I actually like the toe box on the new light version better. It's got a little more room here. It's kind of got a simplified toe box design too, versus the old one, which had a little bit of a curve going on here. The new one comes straight across flat. And then the original also is a little bit more tapered. So I find that just at the front, it can be a little tight. But the new version, like I said, a little more squared off. I like it. It looks kind of sneakerish. In terms of the upper, it's all leather. I think it looks really cool. This is the chestnut one. I think Magical's choice of colors is really good. They feel natural, but also kind of like vibrant. You know, they have some warmth to them. They've got this suede portion around here for a little extra water resistance. They're not super waterproof. You can take them through some wet grass. I was out this morning going for a walk, and they could take some dew and maybe some light rain. And you know, because it is wax leather and you can treat it over time, the resistance is pretty good. But if you were in like a downpour or trying to go through thick puddles, this is probably not the boot for you. Another reason for that is that the sole, the rubber sole, is really low cut compared to a lot of barefoot shoes. And I actually love this because it increases the flexibility of the sole a ton. You know, there's no extra piece up here where, for example, with some Vivo barefoot boots, you get more waterproofing, but they start to feel a little bit stiff. So these are one of the most flexible barefoot boots that I've ever tried. And like, even if you get to the very tip, you know, right here, this is the spot where most barefoot boots don't flex, but the Magical Alaskan is really good. And this is true for both versions, the winter and the spring, fall. In terms of the insulation, they've swapped out the thicker wool insulation for lighter felt. And I think it's not quite as breathable because it's not as puffy, you know, but it's also not as hot if you get it up into warmer temperatures. Like with the thicker wool insulation, if you get above 50 degrees, you can really start to feel hot. Whereas with these, you can probably get them up to around 60, 65 before they start to feel too warm. I think for that reason, they also work really well as like a slipper to wear around the house because you've got this zip on the side. So they're really easy to take on and off, but then I like that they still have the laces on the front because it makes them look a little more classic, you know? I also like that where the zipper runs down, you've got this kind of like rawhide leather look here, which is just kind of a cool touch. And then in the back of the boots, you've got this stretchy portion here, which is nice because then as your heel is moving, it just gives you a little bit more room there. In terms of the volume, I think for some reason the originals felt like they're just a little bit higher. I think they had maybe a little more material here to compensate for the thicker insulation. But overall, there's a lot of room up on top of the boots, especially if you loosen the laces. It does feel a little tight just around here, but I think part of that is because these are the 43. For some reason, I ordered a 43 when I had a 44. So I don't think that the volume is really any different between the different versions, and the material is really soft, so it's not like a harder leather or synthetic shoe where if you have kind of lower volume in the front of the shoe, it presses down, you know. So like when your foot's bending, they've actually got a notch here, and yeah, you don't really get any pressure. So especially as you start to wear them, they just stretch out a little bit to conform to the shape of your foot, which feels nice. In terms of the sole, it's 6.5 millimeters, so that's like a little bit over medium thickness for a barefoot shoe, but as you can see, the flexibility is just incredible. You can twist this thing multiple times over, and like I said, any part of the shoe that you try to flex, there's just really good agility to it. And this feels probably the closest to like a Vibram 5 Fingers type of shoe because they've cut lines here. I've seen some barefoot brands do this and it works really well, you know. In terms of the tread pattern, there's a little bit of room in there, you know, for like slippery hills, but if you were on something super muddy, you would want probably a deeper, more aggressive tread. But honestly, you know, you can use this for some light hiking. It's got some really good protection. It's like a medium density where it doesn't feel clunky, but it also can give you some coverage from rocks and gravel or, you know, other sharp stuff like that. I also see there's a piece of painter's tape on there, and that's because I've actually been using these as like a lightweight work boot to do some work in my van. Like I was setting rivets the other day in the early morning, and I was wearing these. It was like 35, and the van was honestly kind of freezing, but it was nice to have just like this mid-weight insulation because I had a little space heater running, you know, so it wasn't completely freezing, but the floor was definitely cold and they felt nice, you know. Either of the versions would work really well. I've used the original Alaskans for some lightweight work booting too. But overall, some really nice improvements on one of my favorite Barefoot casual boots. So we've pretty much covered the original Magical Alaskan, but one last thing I want to mention is just like how much I like this puffy wool, you know, because there's so much room in here, it really helps move moisture out of the boot as well as temperature. You know, if your feet start to get too hot, they don't get sweaty like synthetic materials do. So yeah, the temperature range is a little bit lower, but it is nice to have that breathability. Another good option would be the Zero Denver, and this comes in leather and canvas. Either one can be waterproofed with wax, which is nice. You know, it has kind of like medium resistance. I would say it is actually pretty similar to the Magical Alaskan because Zero also cuts the sole a little bit closer to the bottom, so it gives you a ton of flexibility, but it's not as highly water resistant as some boots with like a higher guard, you know. But they're kind of mid-weight. They're a little bit heavier than the Magical Alaskans, but still some good flexibility here. They're a little more protective, a little more work booty, some good protection in the front, and it's kind of got a soft suede leather upper, which looks great. Laces are super durable. And then in terms of the sole, it's 5.5 millimeters. They've also cut lines into it, which adds to the flexibility. And then they've got different treads, directions going on each end for going down and uphill and still having some nice traction. And honestly, the protection on this boot is really good, which is why it's another one that can work as a low-key work boot. For something that's a little more waterproofing, this is the Vivo Barefoot Magna FG. This is a really versatile one because it doesn't actually have insulation, but with a higher cut, you can use it in all seasons. And up top, it's got this stretchy wool blend upper. So again, it kind of moves moisture and heat out of the boot when you need it to, and also provides some really nice insulation. But then the leather, it's a little bit thicker, so they're not completely waterproof, but I can do a lot with these and not get them wet. Really, really wet grass, some rain, stuff like that. And then, like I said, the guard comes up a little bit higher than Zero and the Magical Alaskan, so a little more protection, but not quite as much flexibility. Still really good. It's got a 5.5 millimeter tread like Zero, but you can see like in the back, it's a little bit more resistant to flex, but then, you know, it's like good flex in the middle and across. So I would say overall, this is another one where it's a great work boot, great casual boot because you can just slip straight in. And then a great boot for multiple terrains because it's got a lot of surface area for protection on roads from wear, but then there is enough space where you can still use it on trails. Finally, if you want something more casual, this is the Wildly Northwolf, and I love how lightweight this boot is. It feels like you're wearing almost nothing at all. It's literally like a feather. And the upper looks like a herringbone suit for your foot, which is really cool. The toe box is more medium width, so I'd say this doesn't have as much width as some of the other ones, but a good amount of volume up top. And then I just like the higher cut, you know, it's nice for winter. It does have a water resistant membrane in there. The water resistance is fairly low, kind of like the Magical Alaskan and Zero Denver. But there's some protection in the back, and then they have a tabby style split on the bottom right here. So there's a ton of really good flexibility. This is the most flexible out of the ones we've looked at. And the 3.5 millimeter sole provides a really good amount of ground feel. It feels great for urban terrain, but the rubber is a little bit softer, so this is probably the least durable for trails out of the ones we looked at. All right, so that's my first impression review of the Magical Shoes Alaskan Light and Friends, but if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below. Browse and filter more products with the Shoe Finder tool at my website, barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Magical Shoes Alaskan Light or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.